Sarah, I don't mean to laugh, but you look like you're literally recording from a pillow fort.
It's true. I'm in Rhode Island, cat sitting for my sister, which means like already I've had to stop and put the cat out of the room because I don't have a cat traditionally. So I don't understand that they just do whatever.
Yeah, they're in charge.
They're like, "Oh, you're busy? That means I'm going to be on your lap right now."
Now, meanwhile, if you wanted them, they'd be like, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not available right now."
So anyway, but my sister has a very beautifully designed home, like stunning. Everybody is very jealous of her gorgeous home, but the truth is that there is not a single soft edge anywhere in it. So Eric was like, "Can you put a blanket over your head to record?"
Yeah, then I'll be calling him. I'd be like, "Call 911. She passed out." Got real hot under there.
I did do it. And then Jen was like, "Absolutely not. What's happening?" And it is true. There's like no way to do this. So if it's a little echoey, everybody, please don't blame Eric. Please blame my sister for her design motifs.
And I'm sick, so it's the weather has changed and I'm going to get an upper respiratory infection and end up at urgent care. And I did. But it's fine.
So it's a mess today. And Eric is doing yeoman's work, as they say. I mean, we have to keep it exciting for him, or else he'd just get bored and he would be done with us.
That's true.
So, but we have a really fun topic today, and I'm excited about it. So,
introduce us first, Sarah.
Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels, and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor. And this week is an exciting week for Sarah. Tell us why.
Well, so I have a book out this week, which is kind of a surprise, honestly, to me every time I think about it. I don't actually have a whole book out. I am one of a collection of authors who are included in a short story collection from Simon & Schuster called Ladies in Waiting. And the premise of this short story collection, when it was proposed to me by the editor of the Anthology, was, do you have a character from an Austen novel who you love very much and who never got a happily ever after in the text? And would you be interested in writing a short story in which you give that character a happily ever after? And I immediately knew who I wanted to write about, and I said yes. And it turned out that we ended up in this remarkable anthology with 9 authors who are all just, every one of them is amazing, from Diana Quincy to Nikki Payne to Eloisa James to Adriana Trigiani. It's a tremendous group of people. Eleanor Lipman is in it. Not everybody is a romance novelist, but everybody kind of takes a swing at the happily ever after, or at least the happy for now. And I think that people will really, really enjoy it. And so, but it's interesting because I have written, this is now my second romance short. Actually, it's my third romance short story. And I wrote one called The Bladesmith Queen, which is available if you sign up for my newsletter, but you can also get it online because I know Jen, for example, hates to have to sign up for a newsletter for something. But I also know that lots of people like a free thing when they sign up for newsletters, so it does a little double duty. And then I have another, which is YA, which is what's that one called? It's in a book called Generation Wonder.
I know. I was like in Generation Wonder, but I don't know the actual name of the story.
It's in Generation Wonder, and I wish I could remember the name of it. Anyway, it'll come to me. I'll get it.
It'll be in show notes.
Exactly. And as I was writing this, I was really thinking a lot about how difficult short stories are in romance.
I want, because you didn't mention, for example, the Duke who has a sheep.
We don't know the names of anything that I've written. A Duke Worth Falling For. But that's almost 40,000 words.
Yeah. So I do want you to talk about, like, when we talk about, like, so we're going to talk really about, like, super short fiction today. And like how, you know what I mean? I don't think a lot of people who are just readers really think that much about like length in like right by word count. So is there like standards, talk to us about how that all breaks down when you're a
No, that's a
professional.
really good thought, because I do think romance lends itself to, say, the novella format, which is longer. So when we think about a full length romance novel, something that if you're thinking about one of my historicals or sort of any romance novel that you think about, you're thinking about generally about 75,000 to 100,000 words, which is a significant difference in terms of page count. But, and so most normal people do not think about word count. But so I guess we're sort of thinking about maybe 350 to 450 words. I'm sorry, pages. And then you have the category romance, which we've talked about many times. Those are those kind of old-fashioned Harlequins. Those are more like 50 to 70,000 words. So again, like 250 to 350 pages. And then you have novellas, which are maybe 100, 150 to maybe on the high end, 200 pages. And novellas are obviously a much shorter they're a much shorter format. They strip out traditionally anything that is a B plot, or like secondary characters don't really get very much full attention. You rarely in a novella see the hero or heroine or, any of the protagonists kind of separate from the other protagonists in the book. And so you kind of, as things get shorter, stuff gets cut out. But several years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was talking to my editor at HarperCollins, and we were talking about the what are the kind of, is it New American Library or is it Norton? Like the kind of best American short stories, those collections.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it Norton? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Point is, and it's like, they have a collection every year, and it's like best science writing, best American short stories, best, best mystery short stories, or best, whatever. And I said to her, it's sort of weird, isn't it, that there is no best romance short story? And she said, well, Sarah, romance is very difficult to write in such short format. So when we talk about short stories, we're talking about, between 10 and 40 pages, really short. And, when we talked about that, she said, and I think she was really right, like it is very difficult to build up the level of emotion it takes to have a satisfying romance in 10, 20, 30 pages. You really need to be, short fiction needs to be your art form for you to be able to pull that off. And I think that romance just doesn't lend itself to that. And so we don't tend to see that many very short romance novels, like short stories in romance. And so I was writing my short story about Miss Bates from Emma, which is called The Triumph of Hetty Bates, in this book, Ladies in Waiting. And I read Nikki Payne's short story in this anthology. I read Diana Quincy's, and I thought, oh, this would be an interesting topic. Like, let's talk about like not historical. Let's talk about romance short fiction and see if we can come up with a list that are worth reading, And this is not an exhaustive list. There are obviously many, many romances that are worth reading. In fact, when I was looking for it, because it's very easy to come up with a novella, right? For example, the After the End anthology, which Adriana and Ali Hazelwood are just now, the Kickstarter that is just now coming to pass, like those are all novellas. We're talking about, 40 to 50,000 words. You can throw a stone and hit a great romance novella. But I went online to Threads and I said, hey, if you have a romance a short story under 15,000 words, which is about 60 pages, would you send it to me? And so, or would you at least let me know? And we'll post a link to that thread in show notes so you can go look, because we are not going to talk about every short story in that thread. And
although the ones that I'm going to talk about did come from that thread. Like I was,
some of mine came from that thread too. But also some of mine came from other things. So, but you had a thought about short stories.
So this isn't really about romance as much as it is about like life in my day job as a teacher, right? And I think as readers, right, out there in the world, I'm sure you, like me, are seeing, I'm talking like the audience now, not just you, Sarah, seeing a lot of the like sort of articles about the decline in reading.
Yeah.
Right. Not just among children, right? Which is kind of a very specific kind of problem, right? But like just like the decline in reading overall. If you're a reader, of course, you're just like, why aren't people reading? Like, what is going on? Reading is the best thing ever, right? And I think that there's like a lot of ways, and there's a lot of competition for our time. So, I mean, I think we've all had that experience of kind of how, why did I spend so much time scrolling instead of reading? And I think it's very easy to sort of point the finger. Schools aren't doing the right thing. Teachers aren't doing the right thing, I mean, obviously, but it was very interesting because I saw I think it was on Blue Sky. I don't actually remember. It might have been on Threads, where someone was like pointing out, this is also, it's like very easy to sort of point fingers, but this is also in many ways like a class issue, right? Like leisure time for reading is, and then like books are more expensive. And then also, people are working multiple jobs or so much more worried about how to make ends meet. And so reading, it's like, the bad things for you are free. TikTok is free. You can just scroll all day on that thing. But, finding a book and reading a book or like having access to things can cost more, right? Your time, your money, whatever. I really was trying to spend some time thinking about this too. Like, what would be the appeal of short fiction? Is like, it's so easy. And I'm sure we've all had this experience of like, really realizing our reading stamina is different than it used to be. Right. And so maybe right now, if you're listening, you're like, I used to read a lot more and I just don't have the time or the energy or whatever. Reading some of these shorter things might be a great way to just sort of like build that capacity again.
Exactly.
And it's fun. And it just also, sometimes it's like, I don't know, like it's just like a pure shot of romance. As one of the things I was really thinking about when I was thinking about the books I was reading is like, these books are pure romance reasons.
Oh, 1,000%.
Because there is not a lot of time for backstory, and it's just like, boom, here's what it is. And so I think that if you're struggling a bit with, I don't know, like, or you're in a reading slump, I feel like sometimes changing up what you're reading can really help.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by K and L, the hosts of the What in the Smut podcast.
So listen, one of the most popular and amazing channels on our Discord is one where people talk about bananas books. And listen, we love a bananas read here at Fated Mates, but we do not talk about a bananas read every week. For that, you are going to have to turn to L and K and their brilliantly funny What in the Smut podcast. What they do is every week they talk about a smutty book, all about how the smut works and the relationship dynamics, the feels, and what the lore brings to the table. And so, honestly, this is just like a really amazing opportunity for you to just hear about whatever wildly funny, over the top read that they happen to be talking about this week, but with curiosity and no judgment. Every week they are looking to answer the age-old question, is the smut smutting? They love getting recommendations from listeners, and they have covered many of our favorite bananas reads, such as, for example, Morning Glory Milking Farm. They have done an episode on Ice Planet Barbarians. They've done an episode on Railed by the Easter Bunny, one of those, I think, Peeps romances. So this is really for those of you that are just in the mood sometimes for a great laugh, and people who love the fun bananas bonkers romance books. The more bananas, the better.
Well, did you see that they also just recently, over the course of October, have done multiple Headless Horseman romances? And I was like, how did
Amazing.
I miss Headless Horseman romance?
Now you don't have to miss it, Sarah.
No.
They've got you.
Thank you. Thank you, What in the Smut. If you too would like to thank What in the Smut, you can do that by listening to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Head over to the app maybe you're listening on right now and search What in the Smut to get a taste of it. But if you'd like even a quicker taste of it, just stay tuned to the end of this episode and you'll get a sneak peek at What in the Smut. A special episode is going to be dropped right here for you. Thanks so much to K and L and the What in the Smut podcast
And Headless Horseman everywhere
for sponsoring this week's episode. I want to go back to the Austen Anthology just for a second, because as I started to think about this episode and what, the ways, the framing device to use as we were thinking about how to recommend things. So one of the things that Caroline Linden, who I have said on the podcast many, many times, is one of, I think, the best romance novellaists, or, one of the best writers of novellas in romance. And I remember talking to her just about like how I think her novellas are so tightly structured, and they're like a bullet from a gun. They just go so fast, and they're so like compulsively readable.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her saying to me, like, novellas are the best thing, or her favorite thing to write, because she's like, I just leave out all the boring stuff. And I think, there's something to that. Like, as a writer, obviously, hopefully when you're reading a novel, you're not bored ever. But there is a lot of sort of exposition. There are scenes that have to be in the structure of a long form novel to sort of move the plot from A to B to C in a way that, like you said, in a novella, it can be tighter. And in a short story, it really is like, boom, we're starting exactly where the story starts, and you're just getting the romance part. That said, I think there are a couple of structures for short stories that work better than everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously in the Austen Anthology, and this is not common among romance short stories, but it is common among fanfic, which we know a lot of readers come to romance through fic. This anthology really is a lot of, it's sort of fic adjacent, right? I don't write fic, but this is after Emma ends, what happens to Miss Bates. So in my story, we're still in Regency, we're still in Austen's world. I'm playing in Austen's playground with Austen's characters, right? And I add a missing man to this world, right? I bring in a character who plays in the Emma world. There are other characters. Nikki Payne, for example, reimagines Georgina Darcy. I'm sorry, not Georgina Darcy, Caroline Bingley from Pride and Prejudice. And in that scenario, Nikki picks her up from Pride and Prejudice and sets her down in New Orleans in the late 1800s, right? So Nikki is sort of inspired by a character like changing the universe. And then, there are other people who are telling kind of similar stories with the characters, and some of them are, moving the characters around. And so all of this is from fic, right? We're using a specific character that Austen fans know and love.
Right.
And so like there's something naturally the short story works in this manner because the characters already know, the readers already know who the characters are, right?
Right.
Then there's So that's Ladies in Waiting. And I don't have anything else on my list that is similar to that. But what is interesting, though, is that the other thing that really, really works here, and you must have several of them on your list, I imagine, is Second Chance, right?
Oh, yeah.
Characters who already know each other. And the reason why it works so well, and I would say it is incredibly difficult to succeed writing a short story with two characters who've never met before, because you have to drop them into the story with an existing emotional relationship. And I think that's the really, like, I think all of mine are also characters who already know each other. And most of them are characters who at least one of them already has feelings for the other. And we're also catching feelings in these 30 pages.
Oh, wait, I know. I do have one where they meet at the beginning. So
and I have one where they meet at the beginning too, but it's new adult.
That one, and then some of the other ones also started off as like audio, right? So the one that I'm thinking of there's that, is it called Read Me Romance podcast?
Yeah.
Right? So I read something and I didn't realize until after that it started off on that. But I mean, like there's like Audible originals. Like, so Sonali Dev has a Audible original that is, 60 pages or whatever. So I do think that maybe those would be ones, but those are going to be on the almost to novella length anyway, right? But if we're talking short, 15,000 words or less, all of those they know each other already.
I guess now is a good time for me to talk about the one that where they don't know each other already. And interestingly, I wrote one that sort of straddles the line, and I can talk about that one too. But all
right, sorry, I have another question though before we dive into that about the Ladies in Waiting, which is, and I know that you're not a big fic writer, but I did find myself wondering, did it feel higher stakes to borrow a character from Jane Austen? Did you feel a bit of imposter syndrome, Sarah?
I mean, listen, no offense to Stephanie Meyer, but no. I mean, 1,000%. I mean, there was definitely a moment where I texted Nikki Payne. I was in the middle of writing it. And I texted Nikki Payne and I was like, not me over here, like, just fucking writing the world of Emma. And like thinking, I mean, no, it was awful. Like there were definitely moments where I was like, this is a crazy thing to do.
Yeah, different even than like a retelling, right? Which like Nikki obviously has done. I mean, it almost feels like, there's so many Pride and Prejudice retellings. Like, I feel like the stakes have to be like a lot lower. But like, I took a Jane Austen character and thought I was like, that does seem kind of intense.
I think the way that I got around it was, like, mentally, how I wrapped my head around it was I reread Emma and I highlighted all the places where Miss Bates. So, those of you who don't know Emma very well, Miss Bates is kind of an aging spinster in the context of Emma. Emma is a really she's a deeply unlikable character. Like, as when you spend a lot of time with Emma, you're sort of like, oh, she's like spoiled, rotten. She's very wealthy. She like is constantly meddling in other people's affairs. She's, her good friend falls for a kind of farmer. Her good friend, who is not wealthy and not well off and not, noble in any way, falls for a kind of very sweet farmer in the neighborhood, in the village. And Emma's like, no, you can't be with him. Like, he's just a farmer. We're going to hook you up with somebody better. And like, it just, everything about Emma, I love her in a lot of ways because I like a character who really has to do a lot of work over the course of a book, but she's not a kind character. Like, she makes a lot of mistakes along the way. And there's an aging spinster who is poor and was never married. She's the daughter of a vicar. She was the daughter of a country vicar, the village vicar who then died. And so she and her mother have really like, they exist within the universe of this world as like two kind of ladies who rely on the kindness of their neighbors, right? She is the opposite of Emma. She is not beautiful. She is not young. She is not wealthy. She's none of those things. And she's sort of presented by Emma, the character, as being silly. But she's presented by Austen as being really lovely. Like the third person narrator, the narrative structure of this book tells you a different story about this character than Emma, the character, tells you about this character. And so what I did was I went through Emma, I reread it, I highlighted every reference to Miss Bates made by the third person omniscient narrator and any other character who wasn't Emma. And then I wrote a book about that person and gave her, or a short story about that person, and gave her the self-awareness to be able to acknowledge that what Emma believed her to be is what the rest of that society started to like treat her as. And so it was really, I had a lovely time once I sort of got myself into thinking like, I'm not actually writing like Austen. I'm not trying to do like Austen part 2. I was more really, it became a real character study. And also like, she's a darling, wonderful, like older, spinstery, character. And I wanted her to have a heroic ending. Like I wanted her to have love and, but it does. I think if you know that book, you will find that there are a lot of like touchstones from the text in it. So it ended up being really me leaving a lot of Easter eggs for readers. So I think if you love Emma the way I love Emma, you're going to have a great time with it. But yes, of course, no, I had to really figure out a way to navigate this story without telling myself I had to write like Jane Austen.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like it would be really intense. But you know what? If Amy Heckerling can do it, then you can too.
Oh, thank you so much. But Amy Heckerling really was great. So
yeah, I just was like, I feel like you were skating past that. I know you don't like to talk about yourself, Sarah.
Yeah. But... Well, I mean, thank you for the question. And I should say also, the Miss Bates story that I wrote is a second chance. It is quite literally, there was a man when she was young, and she loved him, and he loved her, and they could not be together, and now he has returned. And so it's, 20 years later, and he is back. And there is a little bit of a secret. There's a little bit of a twist. Anyway. So, but I want to talk, first of all, before we do anything else, I want to talk about Nisha Sharma. I want to talk about No Taste Like Home by Nisha, which is a YA sort of, the heroine is a freshman in college. And it's in the Home Has No Borders anthology, which was edited by Samir Ahmed. And the concept of this book is to bring short stories about South Asian young people. Samir, collected a number of short stories from South Asian writers about South Asian young people in the United States. And so each one, not all of them are romance. Some of them are love stories that sort of end, not quite so happily ever after as Nisha's does. And others are just different kinds of stories. But this is kind of an anthology. If you're out there and you're looking for an anthology of stories for a young person in your life, this might be perfect for you. Anyway, Nisha's story is very cute and really like a clever little setup. It's, gosh, I read this one on E, but so in the table of contents, it's about 25 pages. So And that gives you a sense of, it's very tightly done. And so the premise is that the heroine of this book, who is it is her first week on campus. She's, like I said, a freshman in college, and her name is Reet Kumar, and her parents sent her a care package from Seattle, and so she has to go to the mail room at school to pick up the care package from her parents. And she gets there, and she's like waiting for she's put in her slip. She's waiting for the people to get her package. And they call out like Kumar and another person, a very, very handsome older boy, like he's like a sophomore or junior, steps forward because his last name is also Kumar. And he is also receiving a package. He's waiting for a package. And so they kind of they have a very, very sweet meet cute in the moment in the line at the mail center. She refers to him as Kumar number 2. He immediately falls into she's Kumar number 1. They have this very cute back and forth, obviously have a tiny little crush on each other, part ways without giving each other their numbers. And just, she sort of Reet goes home to her dorm, sort of thinking oh, I hope I get to meet him again. I get to see him again. Gets home, and it turns out that they've switched boxes. He has her box. She has his box. And what's really charming about this book is that they both, she opens his box, not knowing, and then realizes that what's inside is not for her. And what's inside of his box is a bunch of food, treats from his mom that have been sent to school. And when she meets up with him to give her box, to trade the boxes again, they open her box, and everything that's in her box is her favorite treats from home, from her family. And they're from different parts of India. And so, they share treats, or the families are from different parts of India. And so they share their different sort of cultural touchstones, but also the taste of home. And then there is this beautiful moment where they combine his favorite treat and her favorite treat, and they eat it together, and it's better for being the combination of both. And it's just listen, it's very sweet. I'm not even sure there's a kiss in this story, but at the end he's do you have a boyfriend? And she's no. Do you have a girlfriend? And now they're gonna, it's just very charming and sweet, and it's a delightful little morsel. So that is Nisha Sharma's No Taste Like Home in the Home Has No Borders anthology.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by William Morrow, publishers of Akwaeke Emezi's Son of the Morning.
We have been waiting for this book, and by we, I mean all of publishing has been waiting for this book forever, because when we all read You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, we fell in love with Akwaeke's writing. And now they are back, and they are back with a steamy paranormal romance set in the Black South, a kind of journey of magic and fantasy, with a very clear thread of sexy romance right through it. Our heroine, tender-hearted Galilee, was raised by the Kincaids, a formidable clan of Black women sequestered deep in the weeping willows and the dark rushing creeks of the South. Galilee has always known, though, that she is different. Though she can't put her finger on what it is, she knows there's a kind of secret around her very existence that has made her feel somewhat hollow since she was a child. And she's just kind of has to deal with it until she meets Lucifer. Are you ready, Jen?
I am ready.
All of a sudden, I'm what? He is fronting as the head of security for her wealthy friend, and he's protecting a mysterious and ancient artifact. But the moment Galilee lays eyes on him, she knows this is not a human man. And from the first time he touches her, Lucifer knows something that Gally doesn't even know about herself, which is that she is not human either. Enter Leviathan, Lucifer's most trusted prince of hell. Levi is ruthless and determined to eliminate Galilee because she's a real danger. She knows more about Lucifer than anybody else. And if she reveals it, they're all screwed. I mean, hopefully in multiple ways. And so an unseen battle rages between hell and heaven and earth. There is a loyalty situation here. Lucifer and Galilee are falling deeper and deeper into attraction. The tropes listed for this book include MMF, so I'm expecting that to get into here too. And I just honestly cannot wait to just dig into this big paranormal romance. We all deserve nice things.
Yes. So if you would like this wildly original fantasy, it is available in print, ebook, and audio. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to buy the book. Thanks to William Morrow and Akweke Emezi for sponsoring this week's episode. The one I'm going to talk about where they meet at the beginning is called Falling for Nola by Katie Russ. And Katie writes like a lot of romantic suspense, and she is like always delivers a real good story. So when I saw her reply to your thread that she had one, I was like, oh, I should check this out because I like her books. And I was really curious about it. Like I said, it's on the longer side because it started off as being for the Read Me Romance Anthology. So I think like it's like 50-ish pages. And the thing that's really interesting about this book is, to me, is that even though it's a really short page count, it's a long timeline. And I thought that was like very interesting because what happens is, okay, so Nola is our heroine and she wakes up in the middle of the night for like the third night in a row because her new neighbor has driven home with his super loud motorcycle. And she's like, I'm not going to put up with this bullshit anymore. And she like rushes outside to basically yell at him like, you know, everybody's asleep and how dare. And it turns out that he is a firefighter who has either like just bought his own house and genuinely is really kind of like, I mean, honestly, it felt very real. Like kind of like, oh, I didn't even really think about it. You idiot. And so, you know, she yells at him and they sort of, you know, it's like sparks fly, but, you know, Nola is not going to be, and this takes place in New Orleans, which is also really funny that her name's Nola. So they meet up at like a community, like a party, a picnic in the neighborhood. And, you know, he offers to give her a ride on his motorcycle. And, you know, basically he's kind of like, you know, like, let's, you know, make out or whatever. I don't know what he really says. But she is like, you're my neighbor. And if this goes sideways, then that's not going to work for me because then I will have to deal with you being next door to me. And that seems like a bad idea. The book then like essentially like sort of skips forward kind of like sometimes like weeks or even like months at a time as they like become friends through like community parties and picnics. And I think there's like a, you know, even, what is it? What's Fat Tuesday? I'm like spacing out. Mardi Gras. I'm like, what's the name of it again? Okay. Sorry, I'm a little fuzzy, everybody. And finally, like at the end, and this is what's also really interesting is like it's a closed door romance. I'm not saying that in a bad way, right? Is finally at the end, you know, it's like, and then it's like Christmas, and you know they really are essentially like, okay, we're friends, you know, now we're friends and we know what we are to each other. And so I'm in love with you. You know what I mean? And so it's really kind of it was interesting to me because I feel like the timeline on so many romance novels is so sped up, right? Like here it is 300 pages and it's 2 weeks. And here instead it's 50 pages and it was like not a year exactly, but it was months. She really feels like Case has to prove to her that he is, I don't know, like worth the potential, like what if it doesn't work out, right? Like prove to me that you're like legit first. You can't just be the guy who wakes up all the neighbors. Anyway, I really liked it. It was really fun. And I did not listen to it in audio. I just read it with my eyes, but I bet it is still available in audio on the Read Me Romance podcast if you want to try checking that out, or other, stories by authors you might know. And I think the way it works is they release like one chapter a day or something, or
Yeah, for like
right?
a
I
week.
think, yeah, for a
Yep.
week or something. So
Okay, so I don't think I have anything that goes for a long, like over a long period of time. I think everything else that I have is like pretty tight. But I do just want to say that I did read, after she advertised on the podcast several weeks ago, I did read all the His Duchess's Lovers books by Elizabeth Roubaix.
did you really?
I sure did, one right after another, because they were like 30 pages long. So you can
Perfect.
get all these books in KU and you'll just like blow through them. And what I would say is that they start out and it's very heavily erotica, these books. But the premise is that these people have been married, and it's sort of been like, while they respect each other, it's been like kind of a loveless marriage for them. And she's had, 4 kids, I think. Like she's, done having children. She's done having his children. He's sort of a rake and like kind of debauched, and he has had mistresses. These are 2 people who just like should not have probably been married, but they were because he's a duke and he needed to get married and have babies. So she's kind of done with it. And she basically goes to him at the beginning of the first story and she says, I'm done. Like, I have had your kids. I want to go out, and I've never had an orgasm with you. You've never given me an orgasm. I mean, she says it straight up to him.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
she's like, I want to go and I want to explore the world. Right. And he's like, fine. But I would like he has political designs. And so he's like, I don't want you to essentially like ruin our reputation in the world, like doing this. Let me help you be discreet. And also, I'll never touch you. Like, I'm not going to touch you, but I would like to watch. Like, I would like to like witness all of this. So it's like the first couple are very erotic. And then it becomes like, over the course of the stories, there are 5 of them. And then there's a 6th that is a separate couple. And over the course of the 5 of them, it becomes really clear that he's starting to like really like her. Like, because here's this woman, like he's been kind of rakish and like into sex and into sort of kinky stuff. And he just never assumed that his wife would be. And now she is. And he's like into it. And so over the course of the 4th and 5th books, he really like falls hard and has to win her. And these are very short. So like, I wouldn't necessarily, and they're very much doing a different thing. These are like one-handed historical reads, but I do just want to call them out because I did enjoy them and I read them all like one after another. And then I wanted to talk about, though, while we're still talking. So I discovered while I was going through these that in this scenario, in the short story scenario, this might be the only way Friends to Lovers works for me. And in order for me to talk about that, I want to talk about one of my very favorites, who is Angelina Lopez. Because she released, I think last year, an anthology called Give It to Me, which is just a bind up of all of her short stories. And it includes a number of like after the happily ever after shorts, like, of her characters. Right. However, it includes at the very beginning of this is the first, which she refers to, because she also gives like a little page about a little overview of what she, of why she wrote this and what it is. So the first book, the first short story in the anthology is called The Phone Call, and she refers to it as the first romantic short she ever wrote. And it is so emotional that on the reread this week, I really was like, as a writer, considering like why it is that it works so well. So the premise is this: the heroine is a widow. She's in her mid-30s. She lost her husband. She has two daughters in elementary school. And it begins with her making a phone call to her dead husband's best friend. And it's clear that they have been in touch over the last 2 years since her husband died, like regularly, almost every day. They speak by phone. He's been like really her support system. On a number of occasions, like she's needed, like she lives in Boston. He lives somewhere far away and maybe Texas but however, like if she needs, something done in the house, they'll FaceTime or call and he'll like walk her through how to do it. And so they've really become each other's, in many ways, like best friends since his friend died and her husband died. And she calls and she says like, hey, listen, what are you up to next weekend? And he's like, oh, that's Valentine's Day weekend. Like, nothing. And she's like, well, would you come and visit me? Would you come to Boston? I'd like to buy your plane ticket. And he's like, you don't have to buy my plane ticket. Like, yes, sure, I'll come visit. What's going on? And she's like, I need you to come here because I have a thing that I need. And he's like, what kind of thing could this be? And of course, we know what kind of thing it is. And she's basically like, it's been 2 years. I haven't had sex. Like, I miss sex. And you're basically the only person I trust to do this. And there's like, and this is by phone. So like you're reading the phone conversation and he just like freezes up. And then she's like, oh no, like this is bad. And then they have like kind of a like stilted conversation where he's like, okay, okay, I will do this. And then it skips forward. And the day before he's supposed to fly in, he sends her a text message that's basically just like, I can't come. I can't do this. And she's like, fuck, because like
he's been in love with her all along.
Right. But she's also just like, I fucked this up. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Which is the whole ball game when it comes to friends to lovers. Like, you have to believe that, the friendship is that valuable that like, if you lose it, it's awful. And then it becomes clear that like, he's fucked it up. Like, she's fucked it up and like, she's so upset about it. And then he calls her like a week later or whatever, like maybe not a week later, but he calls her and she's like a wreck because she has been trying to reach him all week to basically apologize and he hasn't answered the phone. And there's this perfect line that Angelina writes where she's like, I've called you so many times. I've memorized your outgoing voicemail message and I've never heard it before this week. Because you've answered the phone every other time.
Wow.
And then, of course, yeah, you can imagine like how it all kind of like falls out. I mean, I would think this is barely 20 pages, this story. And it is so sexy and so romantic. And it like just somehow Angelina hits every beat of like, these are two people who are destined for each other. Anyway, that's called The Phone Call. It's the first in Angelina's Give It To Me anthology.
This week's episode of Faded Mace is brought to you by HarperCollins, publishers of When I Picture You by Sasha Laurens.
So Renee Feldman really did have her whole life together. She was getting her MFA in documentary filmmaking. She like had a big plan for a creative, expansive life as a filmmaker. But, she lost the creative spark while in the middle of her MFA. She decided to take some time off, but she is really stuck. And what's interesting is at her sister's wedding, she reconnects with Lola Gray, who is a pop star who was supposed to be the songwriter of a generation, but doesn't feel like she's got the creative spark anymore either. It's been a year since Lola has her a secret relationship that Lola had has imploded. And in that heartbreak, Lola has really lost herself because she had been expecting to like come out and live really authentically and publicly as a lesbian. But that relationship died. And now she doesn't really know where she's at. But at this wedding, everything comes to a stop because when they were kids, Lola had a huge crush on the fearless lesbian Renee next door. Such a huge crush that it actually inspired her first like Juggernaut album. And she finally gets a shot at Renee and she takes it, and they have a one night stand that is just so hot and so unexpected and so perfect. And while Renee's willing to sort of accept that it's a one night stand, Lola's not ready to give her up. So it just so happens that she's about to have a tour documentary and they need a director. And doesn't she just have a hot documentarian to hire?
Perfect. So if you are a fan of a sapphic rom-com that is a celebrity normie romance, like No One Loves That Like Sarah, and childhood friends to lovers, then When I Picture You might be perfect for you. If it is available in print, ebook, and audio, and if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to HarperCollins and Sasha Lawrence for sponsoring this week's episode. I have one that's pretty sexy, and it's funny because I think the other thing that I thought was really interesting is a lot of these were like closed door or right, like kisses only.
Yes, because there isn't a lot of space for it.
Sure, exactly. Like once you're going to put sex on page, it's either almost like all or nothing.
Right.
And I get that. I get why. Like I think we're so like if in fact the sex is going to be doing work, then it's going to take up some runway to do that, right? And so it makes sense to me that they might, you know, essentially do less, right? So anyway, in this one though, it is the whole point is the sex. The book is called Hands-On Learning by Maggie Elliott. And what happens is and this is like the book that made me realize like, oh yeah, this is like all romance reasons, right? So Lily shows up, she's like, they're in their like late 20s. And her best friend's brother is Derek. And she shows up at Derek's, like their house. And Derek's kind of like, you want me to, you know, like my sister's not here. It's not actually really clear like why. They like grew up next door to each other or something. So she's known this guy her entire life. And it's just always been like teasing. And, you know, he's just never, you know, she's just always kind of thought he was a jerk. But she comes to him and she's like, I'm not looking for your sister. I'm looking for you. And the reason why is I'm supposed to be getting married in like 2 weeks or whatever, you know this, or a month or however far it is. But my fiance dumped me because he said I'm not good in bed.
That's a favorite microtrope for me. I'm not good in bed. Help me.
She was like, you know, but like the wedding has to go forward. Everything's set. Everything's ready. I refuse to kind of believe this. So I need somebody to teach me to be good in bed. And you don't even like me. So you're
like
the
with the idea
person.
that she would go back to the fiance.
Yes, go back to the fiance. And I was like, oh,
all right.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, that's unusual, right? Like usually it's just like I refuse to find a new man knowing that I'm bad at this or whatever. And the thing that really kind of caught my attention is we switched to then his point of view when she's sort of telling, you know, kind of what happened. And he thinks her determination to salvage the Jared situation would have bothered me, except for the fact that she seemed determined to have a wedding, not necessarily a marriage. And so he sees that this is like a real opportunity for him because, of course, also he's like been into her all along. So she asked Derek for like sex lessons, basically. And then there is like most of the book is them like having a great time in bed. And it's not like really, you know, it's really, really sexy. And then, but what's also interesting though is like that it sort of like skips over things, right? So she, you know, it just is like a book that makes some really like interesting choices, right? So, she essentially, like the way it I mean, like, spoiler alert, of course she's going to end up with Derek and not with Jared. But it's really interesting, like, how she comes to that realization. And I think the thing that I found myself thinking was interesting about this was like one of the first ones I read. And what I found myself thinking is this is like a real interesting laboratory for romance. And what I mean by that is, like, this book, like, makes choices. It, like, skips, like, the first time they have, like, P&V sex, I think. Or it, you know, he gets her off and then she doesn't reciprocate. Or, like, right? Like, there's all these, like, really interesting choices that get made. In a short story, you can make an interesting choice without it feeling super high stakes. And I would imagine as a writer, it would be very fun to experiment in that sort of setting, right? Like, what is it that you can put on page? What can you skip? What can, you know what? I don't know if that makes sense. And so this was a story that I really found myself thinking, like, maybe if this had been a novel, I would have been frustrated by some of these choices, but instead I could be like, oh, this is interesting. What's working? What isn't? And that was it. So this was one of the first ones I read. And then it really helped me to, like, get into the mindset of you can make interesting choices when you're only working with 30 or 40 pages, as opposed to it feeling like everything has to be sort of perfect in a novel.
Exactly. It's because we're willing to forgive a lot more, I think.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The other side of that is, like, you can really elide all of the, like, setup that, like, you just can't do that in a long form text.
Yeah, we need it all. Right.
You need to be you're able to sort of say, in a short story, like, just trust me that these two have had a past that is, that leads us to this moment. So I read in the Romancing the Rake anthology.
Oh, I read this one too.
Did you?
Some of these.
Did you read the Ginny Moore one?
No.
Okay. So Ginny B. Moore wrote a short story called Remedy for a Rake. And in this one, this is a perfect classic. Like, he's had a thing for her forever, right? But he's a rake, and, like, he's worried about his sort of, reputation if he falls hard for a kind of blue stocking-y heroine. So anyway, Dominic is our rake and Lavinia is our heroine, and she has dreams of becoming a physician. And so she can't do that in the UK. And so she decides that she is going to pack up her bags and go to Paris. And this all happens, like, kind of before the story begins. And she's announced to the whole world that she's going to Paris to take medical lessons. And it's the last night. The book begins on her final ball in Britain, and she is at the ball, and for every ball for like 2 years, Dominic and Lavinia have danced one dance together. And they've had, like, lovely conversations, and he's so handsome and she's so fascinating, and, like, they just are so drawn to each other. But they have never danced more than that one dance, because it would indicate that Dominic was, like, potentially interested in settling down and, like, courting somebody, and he's too rakish for that. And Lavinia is too much of a blue stocking, and basically has been like, he's the most handsome thing I've ever interacted with, and I think he's great, but, like, there's just no way I ever end up with that. And so she's headed off to Paris to, like, I don't know, dissect cadavers. Although I will say, this book begins with the line, "Do you want to see a dead body?" which made me laugh, because it's, like, a very sort of classic Gen X line, right? And so what ends up happening, though, is, like, basically she's like, it's my last night in the UK. Like, this is my last chance to, like, basically see if Dominic is willing to invest a little more in me. And she asks him at the end of their dance if he will dance with her again. And he's so, like, he's rendered just unable to reply, because he's, like, too many feelings, like, too many thoughts, right? Static brain. And so she's like, yikes, if it takes you this long to reply to me, like, I made a huge mistake. And she's like off into the gardens. And then he's like, shit, I fucked up. My favorite. And he's like after her into the gardens, except he falls like off a ledge and into a rose bush and breaks his ankle.
Oh
and
my goodness.
It's chaos, right? And then he's brought like up into like I think it's at her home, this story. And so he's brought to like a room upstairs because he's like broken. And that night she like gets her medical bag and she goes in to check on him and discovers that like there are a bunch of scratches on his bare body that the doctors didn't, tend to. And then like he's like basically not wearing anything and she's like, oh, he's so handsome. And at one point there's this great moment, and this is another sort of moment I really love in a romance novel, where at the end of a chapter, in her point of view, he's like, he's bare, from like his chest is bare, his back is bare. And she's looking at like the muscles of his body. And she's like, he's clearly not interested in her. And she has to ignore his muscles. Like she's doing her very best to ignore his muscles. And then it flips to his POV in the next chapter. And the first line is, why was she ignoring his muscles? And it turns out that he's been like flexing to try and get her to like notice. And then they, do it in this bed. And it's like a perfect example of what you were saying, where like it's all in one night. In another, like in a historical that was 400 pages long, you would have to draw it out. Like this wouldn't be able to work this way, but it works perfectly this way because of the format.
Well, in that anthology, I read The Worst Possible Thing by Melissa Kendall, which was a Guardian word romance, although he's just like 2 years older than her and has been scaring all the other suitors away. And that part's really funny. And then I also read Jim Harper is the Worst by Kat Sterling, which just was like a really funny title. And it's set in 1909, I think, Seattle. And they're students at the University of Washington, and they both are rowers. And then at the end, and this is really a short story, like it's like a single chapter, and she's kind of like has to realize that she's been like, he's the worst, but really she's been secretly in love with him all along. And he has been kind of waiting for her to figure that out. But then at the end, I found myself thinking like, I bet this would be one of those things where people would write to Kat Sterling and be like, that's not real. Women weren't athletes back then. And so she talked about like the archival research she did at the University of Washington and how she essentially like tripped across this information about the first women athletes who were on the crew team and incorporated that into her research. So yeah, that was a really fun one. And that's a really long one too. There was lots and lots of different works in that one Romancing the Rake anthology.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by the Blood and Ash coloring book, published by Blue Box Press. And this is cool. It's part of the Jennifer Armentrout Blood and Ash series.
Listen, I love this. As we head into holiday gift-giving season, I think ideas like this are sure to please many a reader, romantic reader friend in your life. So what this is a coloring book that has 50 stunning original illustrations inspired by the New York Times bestselling Blood and Ash series. This immersive collection captures the heart-pounding romance, fierce battles, and unforgettable characters that have enchanted readers far and wide. So that includes things like Golden Crowns, The Awakening of the Harbinger and Bringer of Death and Destruction. And you can just really journey through the captivating epic your way. So whether you're a devoted fan or a newcomer to the realms, this coloring book is the perfect companion for those who dare to rise from blood and ash.
I love this. And listen, this is a holiday gift. If ever I've seen one, you could grab this coloring book and then maybe the first book in the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer Armentrout. It's great.
Some colored pencils, Sarah.
Some colored pencils. That's a great idea. This is terrific for people who are big Jennifer Armentrout fans or people who are just romanticy fans who maybe want to start a new series. Listen, I love anything that's an easy holiday pickup for a gift, and this one is it. You can get the official Blood and Ash coloring book right now in print, and you can do that by clicking on the chapter title if your podcasting app supports it. If not, you can find it wherever books are sold. Thanks to Jennifer Armentrout and Blue Box Press for sponsoring this week's episode. I've got one that is contemporary, a little bit of an age gap, Caught in a Storm. Another way that you can sort of sell one of these, like, 0 to 100 stories. Cara Dion wrote a book called, or wrote a short story called While It Was Storming. You can get this for free if you sign up for Cara's newsletter. And it's a curvy heroine. It's very sunshiny. She's interning on this farm until she heads off at the end of the summer or whatever to work at a museum in Boston. She's in Rhode Island. So I was predisposed to really enjoy this one. And the sort of the owner of the farm is the grumpiest grump who ever grumped. Her best friend's uncle, who is incredibly sexy, but significantly older than her and like also her boss. And this is one of those situations where he is everything she does infuriates him because he just can't stop thinking about her. And then a summer storm rolls through, and you know how I love a summer storm, trapping them on this kind of like in this very sort of isolated space alone. She can't, the road is washed out. She can't get home. Her car is stuck in the mud, and she has to sleep over at his little farmhouse. And she has had designs on sleeping over at this little farmhouse for a long time, and finally, sticks her courage enough to propose that they sleep together in the same bed.
Nice.
And it's a great time for everyone.
All right. I have one that is also kind of stormy. And it's a gothic, and I really enjoyed it. It's called The Greymere Cliffs by Anne Knight. And I mean, when I say gothic, I literally mean like gothic, crumbling, mansion or whatever, fortress. Sorry. Okay. So Mary is our narrator, or, our main character or whatever. She is traveling north to, the wilds of England, where her bestie, Camilla, who of course she's been in love with Camilla her whole life, but it was the time and you couldn't be in love with your best friend, has married and is expecting a husband. Expecting a baby. She's married and they're expecting a baby, but the letters that she is getting from Camilla are just more and more worrying. So Mary's like, well, I'm going to go and be with her during her confinement, to help her, because that's what friends do. And I'll get to see her again and that will be good. But when she gets to this castle, everything is real fucking weird. Right. And like a gothic is so creepy, right? Everything's like mildewy, and there's these two creepy servants, and the husband is like strange and, doesn't really, like sort of seem to like, take very good care of Camilla. And, Camilla's like, here's the key for your room so you can lock yourself in. And Mary is like, are you safe? Like, what is going on? And then, they're at dinner, and, the husband is like, how long are you going to stay? I'll ask the servants if it's okay. And Mary's like, what do you mean you're going to ask the servants if it's okay? And then there's this huge boom, and the whole like castle is like shaking. And it turns out that there has been a curse on the castle for generations.
I love it.
Right, like, oh yeah, right. And essentially, this dumbass motherfucker, that would be her husband, Camilla's husband, essentially, like, the curse is that you can, like, the master of the castle can leave if, like, there's an heir. And so, like, he has, and he basically, he's like, yeah, like, once there's an heir, I'll be able to leave. And, Camilla's like, what about me? And, and so, like, Mary and Camilla.
And what about her?
Oh, well, I'm
she
not
has
going
to stay.
Spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it, Sarah.
Okay, fine.
But basically, these creepy servants are going to, like, make off with the baby is what she's really worried about, right?
Oh, yikes.
And so, like, the castle is, like, being, like, it's on the edge of a cliff overlooking ocean. And, Mary is like, I think this whole thing is about to fall into the ocean. And so there's like running away in night dresses. Now, Camilla is very
I
pregnant
love
and
that.
still manages this, but it's great. Listen, what happens to the husband is great. What happens to the servants is great. And what happens to Mary and Camilla and their baby is great. So I really liked it. It's really short, but really packed a punch. It's called The Greymere Cliffs.
I love it. So I want to talk about, there's a Jessie Mihalik, who we've talked about before.
Oh, yeah. I love Jessie.
I mean, she's great. And she wrote 2 fantasy romance novellas set in the shared world. And these are great. I mean, honestly, this is kind of my dream to like write a collection of romance novellas that are all kind of interconnected, or at least connected via a same world, without having to do the like, God, I've written 1,200 or 1,600 pages in this world. Like, it really feels terrific. So each one of these has a happily ever after. And they are, the book is called Books and Broadswords. And you can get it, everywhere. But so this one is, Jessie writes fantasy. Sometimes she writes sci-fi, but these are definitely perfect for romantasy readers in the group. They have a very, very good way of feeling like a fairy tale situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them is about a girl who has been stealing from the king. And she steals like from his treasury and runs off to buy books. And she is interrupted one day by a like handsome knight, and he's in deep trouble, and like basically what she has, like, it twists enough that in order to save him and save his life, she needs to confess she's been stealing from the king. So it's this sort of like, will she, like, Jessie knows how to like amp up a conflict enough that it really does feel like in this tiny little amount of text, you're getting this big sense of sacrifice. And also, I really think that you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who can so beautifully do a kind of retelling of a fairy tale. Or, I mean, this isn't a retelling of a fairy tale, although it feels like a little bit Rumpelstiltskin-y, a little bit like, I don't know, Princess Lost in the Forest-y. But the reality is that like, Jessie seems to be able to like create a fairy tale of all her own in a way that not many people do. So that is Books and Broadswords. And if you love fantasy, that will be a very fun one for you.
All right. So, it's funny because you said fairy tale. And I was going to say, one of the things I also forgot is I think another shortcut to a short story is to really use a fairy tale, because everybody already knows the plot, right? So you don't have to really waste a lot of time on that. One I really enjoyed a lot, probably, was Cinders and Ash by Elizabeth Boyle. And this is obviously a Cinderella retelling. And what happens is, and I thought it was great. Like, I just had a lot of fun reading it. Is Ella Cinders, it starts off with Ella Cinders. She is a seamstress at a fashionable motif shop. And she has created a gown for a ball. But this gown, and the deal, the Ash ball. So this is like he's the hero. The deal is with this ball, though, is you have to have your printed invitation. It happens once a year. And this guy, it's only held when the youngest, the eldest is like looking for a new bride. And so obviously this is like a real hot ticket. And so Ella has created this like perfect gown, but it's real racy. Right? And so the woman that it's for is like freaking out, basically like, how could you expect my purebred, pure, beautiful daughter to be wearing such a slutty dress, essentially. And, meanwhile, it's great. There's scene sort of opens with like Ella and her like friends kind of like, peeking out from behind the curtains, like watching this all go down in the main room of the shop. So what happens is like, this woman is essentially like, like storming out. And as she storms out, she like runs into somebody and everything goes flying and she accidentally drops the invitation. And Ella or her friends pick it up and tell Ella, you should wear it. Because it turns out that 5 years ago, during the first ball for this particular Viscount Ash, she wore a gown that was very similar. And her friends were like, girl, you know that you wanted him to recognize your work. You know what I mean?
Terrific.
That she had this like magical night with him and then disappeared. So this is all the setup in kind of essentially in chapter 1. And then we go back in time to 5 years ago and like sort of like what exactly happened. And it's really pretty smart. So Ella, it turns out, had been taught, was like a maid to Pamela. And Pamela was like running off with somebody else and convinces Ella, like, my mom is so nearsighted, put on my dress, pretend to be me. She won't even recognize that it's not, me. We look so much alike and she can't see anything anyway. And just like pretend to be me that night so people won't know I'm running away to elope. And so Ella is like kind of young and dumb and lets herself get talked into this because Pamela promises her, like, I know my mom's going to fire you after she finds out, but don't worry, I'll hire you because you did me this solid. So anyway, she's at the ball and she has this, dance with this handsome man. And she, they totally hit it off. She does not realize that it's Lord Ash. And so then what happens is, she runs into an older woman, right? Like it's like someone she knows, like her, a friend of her parents or whatever, who is kind of like, honey, you are out of your mind. Like, you are fucked. There is no way Pamela is going to be able to hire you because she's running off with this penniless second son. You really have, this is not going to work out the way you think.
Yeah.
So you have your fun here at the ball. And then tomorrow morning, meet me at the docks. I need a companion and I'm, going to Portugal or whatever. And you can come with me. And so we get from Ella's point of view how she ended up having this stolen night with Lord Ash. And it's great because this older woman's like, have a nice time. You might as well. You're pretty much, ruined. And meanwhile, like, they actually have sex and Ella's like, she probably didn't mean that, but whatever. And then, then at the end of the book, right, it's now the night of the, like, right, we bounce back to the present. So I thought it was just terrific. I had such a good time reading it. Listen, I love an older woman in a romance who's kind of like, might as well have a good time. Here's how the real world works. And I think, like, in terms of having that be the kind of fairy godmother figure, right? I'm saving you, but not really in the way you think, right? I'm saving you from this bad situation. I'm not saving you for this man. Or like, I can't make that magic happen, but I can like fix this mess you've made of your life. And I just thought it was like super, super delightful. And it really did pack like the whole arc of the story into like a really tight, I mean, this is probably 45 pages long. I thought it was terrific. So it was great. Cinders and Ash by Elizabeth Boyle.
I love that. Well, Elizabeth Boyle's been writing for a million years and she knows how to write a romance novel. So.
Yeah, she does. I was like, oh, it just was so smooth. It was perfect.
Okay, I want to talk about Flash Me by Laura Lovely. So we, a million trillion years ago, sat on a panel about podcasts at RT? RWA?
RWA.
I can't remember. Yeah, I guess RWA. And it was us, and like the Wicked Wallflowers, which doesn't happen anymore, and Heaving Bosoms, which is totally different now, and Laura Lovely, who did a podcast about mermaids. And we've talked about Laura before because she also wrote Pumpkin Pounder, which is a holiday favorite here at Fate of Mates. But when I asked for people to tell me about short stories that they'd written, she self-wrecked her Splash Me, which I read because I knew it would be about mermaids, because of course it would be. I read it, and I want to say this. The reason why I put it on the list is because I think there's something incredibly freeing and really lovely when you read a romance novel about two people who have like a particular kind of kink that is not your kink, but they really are like having a great time in the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I think I think romance does so much work sometimes around like really freeing you to like reveal your fantasies and really explore them. So here's the setup. The heroine of this book has been dating a new guy they've been on like 5 dates. They've had sex. He's cute. She's into him. He's such a nice guy. And they're texting. She's away at work and they're on a work trip, and they're texting, and they're having like kind of sexy texting time. And he says, "Tell me your fantasy." And she's like, "Well, I have, tons of," she sort of thinks to herself what we would all think to ourselves in this moment, which is like, oh, like, how am I supposed to answer this question? Like, how deep down the rabbit hole am I supposed to go? And she basically says, like, give me some boundaries here for this fantasy question. And he says, "Tell me your favorite like role play fantasy." And she's like, "All right, well, I guess we're gonna do it." And she says, "Have you ever seen the movie Splash?" And then she's like, "I wish that the Tom Hanks character in Splash had like walked in." There's a scene. Okay, everybody. Splash was a movie that came out in the 1980s, and Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks were in it. And Daryl Hannah is a mermaid, and Tom Hanks doesn't know she's a mermaid at the very beginning. And she like gets into a bathtub in his apartment in New York City, and she turns into a mermaid, and she has a tail, and he knocks on the door, and he panics her, and she's like, "Oh my God, don't come in." And he thinks there's something wrong, and he breaks down the door, and he discovers that like she has like the tail has gone away. She has dried up enough that like now she's just naked sitting on the edge of the bed. Or at the edge of the tub. And in this, the main character of Laura's short story is like, what if she hadn't turned back into a person? And what if he had seen her tail? And what if they had fucked? And instead of being like, yikes, her like new boyfriend is like, "Yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's on top. Let's go.
Do it. I'm down." And so then she goes to his like apartment on a date, and he's like set up the bathroom to be like the bathroom in Splash, and he's bought her a mermaid tail. And like, it's so cute and also sexy, but like, it's so cute because it's like, here are two people who are like exploring each other in all ways. Like, they're like, yes, they're having great sex that they're, enjoying, but also like, is this my kink? It is definitely not. But like, here are two people who are just having a great time and falling in love. And I really enjoyed this.
So fun. That's awesome. I love it. My favorite factoid about that movie is that's like where the like girl's name Madison comes from.
It didn't exist before.
No, it really didn't. Because I remember seeing that movie and her being like right there on like Madison Avenue in New York. Yeah. And she's like, "My name's going to be Madison," because she looks up at the sign or whatever. And I just remember everyone being like, "That's like a crazy name for a girl. Like, what? That's a crazy name for a person. That's like a president's name. What?" And now it's like so normal.
And also a cat. You had a cat.
We did have a cat, Maddie. Gosh, what a great cat she was. Okay, anyway, it's fine. I'm fine. All right, I have one more. Okay, I read a couple of short stories in from the A Season for Second Chances, a Hearts Through History autumn anthology. And Hearts Through History is one of the like RWA, you know what I mean? Like essentially these are historical authors.
Like
And
subchapters.
yeah, exactly. And I guess they come out with one of these every year. And this one I thought was really interesting. And part of what drew me to it was because, like, the time span of these is from medieval India all the way to the 1960s USA.
Ooh.
And so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And they organize them in like chronological order. So I read two of them. I read Whispers of Love by Jayashri Gopal, which is about the one set in India, because I was like, 1010 India, I want to read this one. And it's a time traveler. And so what happens is, and this was great. It was like, gosh, it was really fun to read. So the way this starts is the main character, the time traveler, her name is Paru. And she and her father are essentially part of like a clan that has like essentially like time traveling abilities. And it, doesn't really spend a whole lot of time going into how or why they can do this. It's just something that they have the ability to do. She's been at it for a while. She and her dad, kind of time travel together. But she sort of is a little tired of it at the beginning. But in this particular story, they are in 1010 and they're in danger. So he basically tells her, go essentially like hide behind that tree. Like we're going to have to figure out. And so she does what her father tells her. And then like a warrior comes upon her. And it's kind of like giving her a hard time, like, you shouldn't be here. And, the king is coming. And, she's like, I'm waiting for my father. And so they have this like really intense sort of, like connection. But she is determined, even though she can travel through time, she is like, wants to go back to modern day. And she's studying to be a doctor. But what she does, kind of without her father really knowing, is she is continually traveling back to see him. Because, and his name is Anna Ruth. She is like, I don't know, they're into each other. And he knows that she is different, right? She uses these words like college, that he's like, I don't know what this is. And so what happens then is, kind of, she is basically determined that like, once I finish studying to be a doctor, I can tell him the truth and, maybe we can have a chance together. And at that point in time, of course, she goes back and she sees him, she thinks, with another woman and a child. And it's been so long since she's been back that she thinks that he has like forgotten about her. And so then there's this like really long period of time where they don't see each other. And then she hears him like calling to her through time. And she has to go back and find out why he needs her. And it's great. So I really like that
really
one.
Fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then there was another one I read that had like big, and I don't remember honestly the title of it because there's like 20 different ones in here, but it's like a Robin Hood story, right? Like essentially it's like King John and the taxation, and basically he has come back from the Crusades, and there's a woman that he was in love with, but it's called A Harvest Dance. Oh no, that's not it. I don't remember the title of it, everybody. She's essentially like, he was like, I'm going to die. So I'm just going to like break up with her because that way she can like find someone else. But he comes back alive and she's like, basically like, fuck you. You know what I mean? You broke my heart. And so they plot and plan a way to like kind of get rid of the tax collector, and like then they fall back in love with each other. So that was really fun. So that's in a season for second chances.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah, it was great.
I just want to shout out to I want to shout out the Spicy Bites anthology from the Romance Writers of Australia. Every year, some of you may remember, I was at the Romance Writers of Australia this summer. Every year, the Romance Writers of Australia put out a call for short stories from their membership, and they give them like a idea, all this year it's going to be about tattoos, and then everybody submits spicy short story that somehow involves tattoos. So you can see those online, you can get them, you can buy them in the United States in ebook, and the money goes to help fund the Romance Writers of Australia.
Fun.
Yeah. Other than that, that's all I have.
That is also all I have, but that was a lot. I mean, I think the thing too is like we mentioned anthologies where we read one, but there's like 20 other ones you could check out.
This is a good time for us to remind you that show notes exist, everyone. And anytime we do an episode where we recommend a bunch of books, you can go directly to show notes at fatedmates.net and see all the books we recommended, which is really fun.
I put them in order too of like when we talked about them.
The name of the short story that I wrote for the Generation Wonder YA anthology about teenage superheroes is called Fire That Lasts, and it is also a romance. Anyway, I am Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop, and we are Fated Mates. You can find us every Wednesday wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you can find us online at fatedmates.net. We are on Instagram at FatedMatesPod, on Threads at FatedMatesPod, and on Blue Sky at Fated Mates. Please help our sponsors out by downloading their books and reading them. Head over to show notes to see a full list of all the books that we recommended and the information on our sponsors again. And other than that, if you really love talking about romance novels, you can head over to our Patreon and join the Patreon. And everybody who joins the Patreon gets access to the Discord where, a couple thousand people talk about romance novels all day long. You can go hang out with them. That information is at patreon.com/fatedmates or fatedmates.net/Patreon. Pick your pleasure. Other than that, we are thinking about you. We are sending our love to everybody out there in this crazy time. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We love you.
Bye.
Welcome to What in the Smut podcast,
where the books are horny and so are we. I'm Elle.
and I'm Kay. So, in true fall fashion, this week we read Seduced by the Pumpkin Spice Latte by Evelyn Cloves, and the synopsis says Melissa is so ready for her first pumpkin spice latte of the season, but what she discovers when she takes her first sip is that she is into PSLs on a level she never expected. Join her on her voyage of sexual discovery with a few pumpkin spice lattes, a couple hot baristas, and a whole lot of sensual fun. This was just as weird as that sounds.
It's so much weirder than it sounds. Where would you put this on the smut scale?
I mean, it could be argued for a level 3 because there are 3 participants at one point.
At one point.
Then it begs the question of, like, what constitutes sex, because there's no
penetration, and we
Right.
literally have level 1 is code blue balls because there are orgasms but no penetration.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah. And then I guess level 1.
Because so briefly there are 3 participants.
Do we split the difference and call it a 2?
Fine.
So there was no trigger warning. There was no, as we like to say, grocery list of potential triggers on this. There was really, it just started. The book just started.
Oh, it did. Yeah.
I mean, I guess food play a little bit. 3 participants in sexual activities.
Potentially a little bit of public.
She thought she was in public.
Yeah, she thought she was going to get caught. That's about it.
As for reviews, a 2-star from Amazon says, you read it for the fall vibes. That's it. I don't even know. It wasn't bad, but it's not good either. It's like, what the fuck am I reading? But then you can't stop reading because it's so short. So now you have to follow through. I'm a pumpkin spice lover, so I just had to. Pure smut, but you will turn your head sideways. LOL. I'm not mad at it, but still, what the fuck? I mean, it's not pure smut.
It's not pure smut.
It's just weird.
I do agree with you will turn your head sideways. It feels emotionally true.
Yes. 4-star says, what? I don't even know where to start. Basic white girl gets her motor running with pumpkin spice lattes and finds 2 other pumpkin spiced around people to have pumpkiny good time with. Wink, wink. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
But neither did the book, so I guess it's fine.
Yeah, we'll go with it. A 5-star on Goodreads says, I mean, I don't know what else I expected. This white woman legit fucks herself, then 2 others, while drinking a PSL. 5 out of 5 for good vibes and laughs, but I will be talking about this in therapy. I will not. My therapist cannot know what I read. A 1-star from Goodreads says, seriously, someone sedate me. This took a twist even I wasn't prepared for. And I agree.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for this.
I wasn't either.
And finally, I've never identified more with a review that Kay has pulled for one of these than this 1-star from Goodreads, which just says, I think I need to unlearn how to read.
This one made me laugh out loud. So if it makes me actually laugh, it gets pulled. So as a reminder, if you want to read this, it is super fast. Probably read this in under a half hour. It was a real quick one. We are going to go through all of the spoilers. If you want to stop here and read, the link is in our show notes, and we will be back here waiting for you so you can hear what we have to say. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot.
We have so much to say. I think there were 14 pages of this book.
I think so too.
And I think every single page made me so concerned. There was just so much. We start off okay.
Yes. And this book was published in 2015.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, so we start off and Melissa, our female main character, opens her eyes and doesn't realize why she's awake yet. There was no alarm this morning at 6:23 a.m. and usually she sleeps until 7:30. But then she realized what day it was.
Indeed.
It was the first day that the pumpkin spice lattes were available at Starbucks. Now, at this point, it gets earlier and earlier. I haven't had a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte yet, but I have had pumpkin spice K-cups with pumpkin spice coffee creamer. And
incredible.
It's delicious.
Of course. I'm a fan.
But I feel like in 2015, maybe I did know when they started selling them.
I mean, so it was a different era.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. We're talking 10 years ago. We're talking Obama's second term. Like, the struggles of the world were just a little bit different. Pre-COVID. The most hated thing in the world was a white woman who was considered basic, who loved pumpkin spice lattes in 2015.
Is so true. Oh my God. I didn't even think about it like that, but you're right. Nobody gives a shit if you're going to wear your Ugg boots and drink your pumpkin spice latte anymore because the world is burning.
Yes. So as you appreciate this masterpiece for what it is, I want you to go back in time to 2015 and think about how sardonic this story is if you view it through that lens. Because literally, Melissa is the most basic bitch ever written into fiction, I think. It says, pumpkin spice lattes were just about her favorite thing in the world, right after Taylor Swift, brunch, and braids she learned about on Pinterest. And when she gets out of bed, she slips on her Ugg boots, which she prefers to slippers, and she gets dressed in a pair of yoga pants, some cute sneakers, an oversized tee layered with another oversized tee, a cardigan, and 3 different scarves.
I do kind of feel attacked in all of this. For so many reasons. One, congratulations to Taylor Swift on her engagement.
Breaking news.
Two,
as of this recording.
I loved me some Pinterest. I still do.
You love Pinterest in the year of our Lord 2025.
I do. Yes.
Incredible.
Absolutely. I find a lot of stuff on there still.
That is wild to me. I don't know that I know my Pinterest login.
And yoga pants and Ugg boots, I mean, I still wear that. So I felt a little bit called out in this moment in reading this, especially in 2015. That was solid, could have been me.
Yeah. The only thing you're missing is the shimmering auburn hair thrown into a messy bun because she didn't have time to try a Pinterest braid.
That's true.
Did all of your friends post Facebook statuses about how they wanted to get their hands on a pumpkin spice latte like Melissa's did?
I don't think so.
I feel like even come 2015, posting Facebook statuses about your drink was a little bit cringe.
Everyone had moved over to Instagram by that point.
Yeah.
And they were posting pictures of their drink instead of their Facebook status.
Yes, this is correct. The cringe evolves.
So when Melissa got to Starbucks, there was a little bit of a line, but it wasn't too bad. There was a lot of telling.
Yes.
She toyed with her phone as she waited to get that hot, creamy deliciousness in her mouth. There are so many times throughout this where I'm like, I mean, I get that the whole point of this is sexualizing the pumpkin spice latte, but like, it went too far.
Okay, we did skip over her laying in bed before she gets up, thinking about how she's going to get a pumpkin spice latte. And it says she ran her hands along her body, enjoying her own naked form that would soon be enjoying the hot, delicious taste of a pumpkin spiced latte.
The anticipation she felt was almost like the kind she got when she saw a really attractive person. She could feel the desire pulsing through her veins.
So I really assumed, and maybe we can blame it on every other book that we've read up until this point, I assumed that we were going to get a sentient object.
I was hoping. It would have been better than the alternative of what we actually got.
So she gets in and she's very excited to order her PSL. She reached the front of the line where a pretty girl with jet black hair and a Starbucks uniform said, "Good morning, what can I get?" But before she could even finish, Melissa blurted out, "A venti pumpkin spice latte, please, extra whipped cream." And this tips off the Starbucks girl.
Yes.
That Melissa is very excited for a pumpkin spice latte. And the girl keeps winking at her.
Yep.
And Melissa thinks that she's flirting with her and is very direct about it, which feels not realistic. And yes, I recognize that I am taking issue with the realism of this story.
I mean, to be fair, of the majority of the stories that we've read, the realism in this is probably the closest to reality.
You're so right, and I hate it.
There's no magic. There's no magic. It is just a girl getting off to her pumpkin spice latte.
You're right. And honestly, having read all 14 pages and now kind of going through it page by page once again, I am still unclear on if the author hates people who like pumpkin spice lattes or not.
Or if she wrote this as a joke because she likes it so much that... Yes. There's not a chance that this was written...
Seriously?
No, not a chance. No. Not a chance.
No.
So
No.
The barista does say, "I'm pretty excited too. I think they're the sexiest drink we sell." I mean...
I've met weirder baristas.
That's true. But of all the sexy drinks, a pumpkin spice latte is definitely not the sexiest.
No, because it's so basic. I love a PSL. I do. But, like, if you're going to go for sexy, like a salted caramel mocha, something that's a little bit,
Salted caramel. Ooh.
Something that's got a little bit of intrigue.
Yes. So, yeah, Melissa says, "I'm very flattered, but I'm not interested in dating anyone right now," which is strange.
It is very weird.
I don't think I would say that to someone that was, like, openly asking me out rather than just winking a little bit.
Yes. And the Starbucks girl, just as weirdly, says, "Oh, I wasn't trying to flirt with you. I was trying to tell you how sexy PSLs are." And she winked again. "But you are super cute. Come back when you're feeling like dating someone again and we can talk then."
Weird.
What?
Weird. So she gives her name for the order. She gets her order. There it was, her first pumpkin spice latte of the season.
Well, first she was distracted by how attractive the guy who made her drink was.
Yep.
A cute guy with an afro handed her her drink, and she says, "Why are all these Starbucks employees so attractive?" So we do get some bisexual vibes.
You want to know what I have to say about that?
What?
She's probably ovulating. Because you know what? I find everybody attractive when I am also.
Oh my God.
She says her latte looks so perfect and beautiful, covered in luscious whipped cream, steaming hot, just waiting for her to put her lips to the rim and drink it in.
Yep. As she took the drink, she could feel the warmth travel through her entire body. Here's another 2015 reference.
Yep.
It was almost like she was holding hands with a really hot person, or looking at a picture of Channing Tatum and/or his wife, Jenna Dewan Tatum. They're not married anymore, are
No,
they?
very not married.
Yeah.
He's already, I want to say, been married again since then and also divorced again, or engaged at least.
10 years is a long time.
Yeah, really.
She felt a throb in her body that was undeniable. Was she into this pumpkin spice latte? Like, sexually? She pushed the notion out of her mind. That was silly. You couldn't have sex with a Starbucks drink. Or could you? No, you couldn't.
So she looks around the Starbucks and it's early, so we get the information that it's not very busy in there. Like there were open tables, but somehow she gets kind of pointed in the direction of the upstairs seating area.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever been in a Starbucks that's got an upstairs seating area?
No, I've been in like regular indie coffee shops that do. Actually, talk about basic. I think the Starbucks Reserve in Manhattan does have an upstairs.
Okay. Cool.
That's where you can get alcohol in your Starbucks.
Oh.
Top notch. Top notch.
I need to add that to my tour of New York City book things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Add that Starbucks
Yes.
on there.
Anyway, so Melissa goes upstairs and she still hadn't even had a taste yet, and the anticipation was killing her. She could feel tingles all throughout her body, sending little shocks of electricity to her nipples. Her nipples? Oh my God, Melissa Brewer, you cannot be attracted to a pumpkin spice latte. That doesn't make any sense. But she could feel it. Her body wanted that pumpkin spice latte, and not just to drink.
This is where it starts to get weird. Like
This is where it starts to get weird?
Yes, because
Yeah, no, it is. It definitely is.
to be excited about something, there's so much shit in the world. To be
Oh, yeah.
excited about something is fine. If you're going to be excited about a pumpkin spice latte to the point where you're making Facebook posts about it and, getting nipple tingles, that's great. But it just started to really go off the rails here. As she got upstairs, sits in her favorite chair.
I mean, it can't be that memorable of a chair if she forgot that there was an upstairs
That's true.
of the Starbucks.
And then she says out loud, because there's no one else up there, "What is this feeling?"
And then a wave of desire flowed over her entire body, and she finally put her lips to the rim of the pumpkin spice latte cup. I just assumed that we were about to have a shape-shifted pumpkin spice latte.
It would be fantastic if that were the case, but no, that's not at all what happened. She let the whipped cream cover her mouth, licking it off sensuously as the cream spread across her lips, and then the hot liquid took over, almost burning her, but not quite, as she took a tiny sip. As the hot, milky stuff ran down her throat, she let out a small moan.
I hate it.
I do too, but also, you can't drink any drink from Starbucks immediately and not burn your tongue.
This is where Kay takes issue with the realism.
Yes. Also, I wish I counted the number of times that pumpkin spice latte was written out on these pages.
Yeah.
It just could have turned into like her drink, but no, it really nailed in the point that it was a pumpkin spice latte.
Oh, yes. She checks again that she's alone. As she moved in for another sip, her left hand drifted down to her breast, pinching her nipple through the layers of her cardigan and 2 oversized teas. And she put a lid on the pumpkin spice latte so she wouldn't be too tempted to gulp it all down at once, even though she wanted it inside her so badly. I'm overwhelmed.
I'm underwhelmed.
She brought the cup down to her breasts, feeling the warmth between them, letting the pumpkin spice aroma float up and envelop her nostrils. The pumpkin spice latte was almost moving of its own volition now, with Melissa just acting as a vessel for the sexual pleasure it was bringing her. I'm waiting for this to be a sentient object. It's not.
No, it never comes. But she does. It's going to get infinitely worse for me because not only does the pumpkin spice latte not come to life and pull its fucking weight around here, it also is going to get everywhere. Yeah. Elle's least favorite thing is when food or beverages or any other wet or sticky substance ends up on someone.
It's so bad because that means that this is just a pumpkin spice latte.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That's it.
That's all.
It's getting spilled all over her. Mm-hmm. We're going to start small. Dear audience, it's going to become egregious.
Yeah, it is. Even by my standards. And that says a lot.
I cannot express how much I hated this. But we start small. A small bit of PSL spilled out of the small hole in the lid and got on Melissa's oversized tea. But she didn't mind. It felt kind of good. Almost too hot, but not quite. And creamy.
That was weird.
Ooh, you can't feel how creamy it is through a little drop on your t-shirt. What do you mean?
You're wearing 2 t-shirts.
Yes.
And a sweater. And no. So the pumpkin spice latte made its way down her body, caressing her belly and finally reaching the waistband of her yoga pants.
I can't.
She's rubbing a paper cup all over her body.
Yes.
No.
How is this sensual?
Right.
It even gets called a cardboard cup.
Yes. I feel like I would be more on board with this if it was a mug.
Yeah. No, I think you're fucking right. But Starbucks doesn't do that.
And so she thinks to herself, was she really going to do this? Was she going to have sex with a pumpkin spice latte in a Starbucks? No, you're not. You're going to touch yourself while you're holding a coffee.
That is not the same thing. I'm sorry, that's still masturbation.
Yes.
No, I'm not sorry. Face the cold, hard truth.
So her hand moves under the waistband of her yoga pants to her wet, waiting clit, ready for her fingers, warmed by the pumpkin spice latte, to stroke gently. The PSL remained on the outside of her yoga pants, warming her pussy through the cardboard cup, sending the scent of fall through the entire room.
I can't.
I mean, the warmth of that, okay, I guess, sure.
All right.
But the rest of it, no.
She strokes herself as the pumpkin spice latte moved up and down her body, this time splashing a little bit of itself on every part of her.
It's not splashing itself.
It's not.
She is spilling it all over herself, just short of pouring it on herself.
Mm-hmm. She gets herself there. She has one of the best orgasms she's ever experienced. She let out a cry. She couldn't help it as her body bucked and writhed in the purple armchair. When it was over, she looked at the cup in her hand.
Also, she came as she took the final sip of the pumpkin spice latte. It's almost like the latte was giving her permission to come.
Oh my fucking God.
See, I just made it better.
I disagree. When it was over, she looked at the cup in her hand. She'd crushed it completely, used it up, but now the pumpkin spice latte was inside her, a part of her now. And this is where it gets fucking weirder.
Yep. This is that twist that nobody was anticipating. So she's like, oh no, somebody could have walked in and seen me do this. And then she realizes that, in fact, 2 people did come in to the room and see her do this. And it was the goth girl and the afro man. The baristas from downstairs.
Yes. And she tries to explain herself, but the pretty goth girl walked over. They're both holding, both of the baristas
Are double fisting.
Are double fisting pumpkin spice lattes.
Yes.
There's something horrific about that imagery. I don't know. So the pretty goth girl walked over to Melissa, set one of her PSLs down on the little table next to the purple chair, and stroked Melissa's hair gently. Don't worry, she said. We understand.
And she just accepts this way too easily.
Yeah. Also, I hated this line. The guy loped over as well and stood on Melissa's other side. That he ran? He ran with long strides.
In my head, loped to me is like dun 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 dun. Like that's what I'm picturing is like.
No, that's also bad. Loped is like what you use for a wolf. Like to lope is like a long-legged. Let me look this up. Maybe I don't know. No, run or move with a long bounding stride. That's insane behavior.
And she's not concerned with the man with the afro sprinting at her. Also, he gets a name. His name is Michael, I believe.
We don't get that for another couple of pages.
Yeah.
And we're never going to get...
Nope, Goth Girl doesn't get a
name.
name. So she says to them, you're not going to kick me out for having sex with a pumpkin spice latte in your Starbucks?
Stop calling it having sex with pumpkin spice latte. You didn't. That's stolen valor.
It's like so many women are having sex with a glass of wine after a hard day. If we're going to call it that.
Oh my God. You're so right. You're so right. So Melissa had never been so relieved. The goth girl smiled. She had a stunning smile ringed by a beautiful shade of eggplant lipstick. Melissa couldn't take her eyes off her mouth until her eyes traveled down and realized that the goth girl also had a rockin' pair of breasts.
This was very much brought me back to Double Stuffed, where it's like, was this written by a man?
Right?
Because rockin' pair of breasts.
Rockin' with an apostrophe.
Yes.
Emphasis not my own.
Yep.
Yeah, it felt very out of place.
So the guy with the afro is stroking her face with the PSL on her right side. She turned to look at him as he moved the cup down her face, over her neck, and down to her breasts.
The goth girl says, we're like you, Melissa, who is confused how they know her name, and
then
the goth girl
that you
laughs
have
at her.
Give your name to get a Starbucks order.
Yeah. So then she kisses the goth girl.
Mm-hmm. So I did like this particular sentence a little bit. I liked the imagery. Melissa turned her face and kissed the goth girl right on the mouth, worrying briefly that she'd spoiled the beautiful eggplant lipstick. But when her lips hit the goth girl's soft mouth, all her worries dissolved like sugar in a hot cup of coffee. That was a nice little bright spot.
Yeah. The worry about spoiling the lipstick. I think that's funny. What I don't think is funny is that she felt a small splash as the guy with the afro poured a tiny bit of the hot liquid onto her chest while she's kissing the girl.
Yes.
And that is intentional, by the way, because it's gonna get worse.
So then, unlike Elle, Melissa really likes that she's just had this poured on her. So then she starts to kiss the guy with the afro. Again, we don't ever Oh, we do get a name for him, but he still
not
is
yet.
we still just have guy with the afro and goth girl. And now the goth girl moves one of her pumpkin spice lattes down between Melissa's legs.
And she pours a little bit of the pumpkin spice latte onto Melissa's yoga pants.
And Melissa cried out in ecstasy.
I cried out in anguish.
So then she strips down from she keeps her pants on, but takes off her cardigan, 2 oversized tees, and her scarves.
Yeah.
The goth girl takes a sip of one of her pumpkin spice lattes, swishing it around in her mouth before diving for Melissa's nipple. This I didn't hate.
Too sticky. At this point, I have a reputation to uphold. This part was fine. I mean, I like nipple play, so like I'm okay with it.
Well, and the temperature change, the temperature piece
Yeah.
of it is like, I could
This is all
see-
fine.
This is fine, yeah. So then the guy with the afro slips his hand in her pants. But unlike her own hands, his hands are large and strong, and his fingers long and flexible. And when he touched her clit, it was as incredible as sipping a pumpkin spice latte for the very first time.
Insane.
He takes a sip of his coffee and kisses her. She likes that. The combination of the pumpkin spice on his tongue and the way his fingers are working.
That's all fine.
Yep. Brings her to climax once more. She whispers, "I'm coming."
I hated that, but it's about to get worse. Both the goth girl and the guy with the afro emptied their entire pumpkin spice lattes onto Melissa's writhing body. As the hot liquid splashed on her naked torso, the guy with the afro worked her clit like no one ever had, and Melissa felt herself come with the force of a bolt of lightning. Jail. Jail for 1,000 years.
There was a lawsuit against McDonald's on hot
Yes.
coffee being poured on someone's body.
The infamous hot coffee lawsuit.
She got no warning that the beverage inside may be hot.
It does feel like grounds for legal action.
If not for Melissa, then for us for having to read it.
I am the damaged party, okay? The goth girl brought her second pumpkin spice latte to Melissa's lips, saying, "Now take a sip. It'll be the most incredible sip of pumpkin spice latte you've ever tasted."
And that sip makes Melissa come again. Almost as hard
my
as
God.
the first time. I'm
Oh my God.
kind of jealous.
No shit. And listeners, do you want to guess before we tell you what these people call themselves? Go ahead. Take a moment. Okay. There are a certain few people who we call pumpkin spice sexuals. It's very rare, but Michael and I, she nodded at the guy with the afro, are 2 of them, and we're very good at spotting our kind. I hate this. I hate this so much.
I agree. I also hate this. And she says, when you came in this morning, we knew right away you were one of us, but that you needed to discover it for yourself. Because could you imagine if someone came up to you and said, "Excuse me, I think you're a pumpkin spice sexual"?
I think I would apply for a restraining order then and there.
I would ask questions first. Excuse
I
me?
wouldn't.
What do you mean?
Nope. I recognize crazy when I see it.
It's all that New York time.
Yeah. I would treat it like the New York subway. You keep your eyes down and you keep moving.
So the goth girl says they let her upstairs so that she could discover this on her own.
Indeed.
And made sure no one came up here so you'd have enough time to figure it out. And then they say that they locked the door when they came up so that nobody else would disturb them. I question who is making coffees downstairs.
Oh, I think they might have locked the store.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
otherwise, no, they must have locked the
Although,
store.
I mean, I feel like my Starbucks is not very big and there's always like 6 or 7 people working. So perhaps they were like, we're going to go on our break upstairs. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't
Oh, I
unlock
hate
the
that.
door.
How big is this Starbucks?
It's got 2 floors.
Surely they heard her screaming up here. Oh, maybe that's why she whispered that she was coming.
Because she... Perhaps. But she screamed the first time, didn't she?
Yeah. Yes, she did.
Maybe that's how that was their cue to go upstairs. She figured it out, so now it's our turn.
Oh my God. Michael says, it takes a little getting used to, but we're happy to help you explore your new sexuality. Drawing a finger down Melissa's still naked, still wet torso. Calling it a sexuality feels...
disingenuous to the...
It feels homophobic.
Yeah. 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 And they're like, she's trying to bring in different genders to make it seem as though, or to give us the indication that Melissa is bisexual.
Yeah.
But also, I guess, more than bisexual. But like...
she's pumpkin spice sexual. She doesn't care about gender, just flavor profile.
Also, and this is a serious question, does that fall under the umbrella of like pansexual, or does that only apply to people?
You know what? If you'd asked me 24 hours ago, I would have been like, obviously pansexual is limited to people, but I don't know. Listeners, sound off in the comments.
Yes, like we understand that this is a very silly book and that, yeah, you're right. It does sound a little bit questionable that they're referring to it as a sexuality, but maybe not. Maybe we are not informed enough.
Maybe we're just ignorant.
Which it wouldn't be the first time.
No, and it will most certainly not be the last time. So Reddit and Wikipedia both are saying pansexual is for people.
Okay. Is there a sexuality toward inanimate objects?
I'm going to have to ruin my Reddit algorithm for this, I think.
So there is a sexual orientation and romantic attraction called objectum sexuality, also known as objectophilia.
That seems more applicable here.
We've spiraled.
We have spiraled.
But...
so this story ties itself up right here with Melissa still naked and still wet in the upstairs of this Starbucks. And Melissa says, same time tomorrow? And the goth girl, who still does not have a name, says, tomorrow? I was thinking I could go make us another batch right now. And Melissa smiles and says, that sounds great. Maybe we can try 6 pumpkin spice lattes this time.
So this is where we end. That being said, what would you rate this one?
This is a 1 star for me.
Is Corn Daddy less weird to you now?
How dare you attack me in this fashion? Yeah, yes. Corn Daddy's less weird. I'd rather the object came to life. This was weird and gross and full of 2015 references that didn't age well. I didn't like it. What did you rate it?
Yeah, this is a 1 for me. I mean... I am good with weird. This was too weird for me. It wasn't like, there were some parts of it that I was like, okay, that's all right, I guess.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was too weird for me. It had its moments.
I feel like it had no clear identity, where it was like, it wasn't funny enough and it wasn't sexy enough.
Yes, it was just kind of weird.
It was just weird. It felt ironic in like a mean-spirited kind of way.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for me. But it certainly, I don't know, I'll never look at a pumpkin spice latte the same way again.
So my casting...
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
I mean, given the current state of things, could potentially be also considered a little mean-spirited.
I know exactly where this is going. Go on. Tell the listeners who you cast as Melissa.
So for Melissa, especially given that time frame of the basic bitch in which Melissa was written, I went with Blake Lively.
What a choice. It would have been a choice in 2015, and by God, is it a choice in 2025.
So I could picture her going to a secluded Starbucks or a secluded area of Starbucks and having her way with the pumpkin spice latte. And for the goth girl, this was entirely accidental.
Okay.
But I cast Taylor Momsen, who was on the same cast of Gossip Girl with Blake Lively, and it was completely an accident just because of her whole aesthetic, with the fact that she was Cindy Lou Who and now is this goth girl is just wild. Yeah. So that was completely accidental that we had two of the cast members from Gossip Girl in this casting, but also kind of goes along with their Gossip Girl characters.
I think that's probably correct.
And then for Afro Guy, who we later found out was Michael, Corbin Bleu from High School Musical fame.
Another good 2015 pick for sure.
Oh man, that man has beautiful hair. I think he cut it recently. Like, I think his more recent pictures, he's got much shorter hair, but that is
devastating.
Some gorgeous, gorgeous hair that he had back in the day.
What a ride this has been.
It certainly has.
Well, what are we subjecting ourselves to next week?
So next week, we are going to read a monster romance called Little Slice of Hell by Cleo Evans. This is part of a 14-book novella series that are all standalones, but interconnected. And I'm excited for this one, actually.
I can't wait.
Have you read anything else since we talked last?
No, still making my way through Inadequate Equilibria this moment. Yes.
Again, if you've made it this far, we appreciate you, especially after today.
Thanks for coming along with us on this ride.
Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. We had a lot to talk about today, so please comment on any of our social media posts or podcast medium, wherever you listen. Tell your friends. And we are 2 weeks out from the Smut Lovers Conference.
Well, by the time this comes out.
A week and a half out from the Smut Lovers Conference.
Yeah.
We will be in Orlando at the Smut Lovers Conference. If you're going to be there, come stop by and say hello. Yes. We're excited to meet people. And with that,
we're at our wits' end.
We'll see you next time.